Look, right this second, as you're breathing, the US government is one threat away from shutting down completely. No exaggeration, deadlines exploding, bills unpaid, and millions of Americans feeling the squeeze in their wallets like someone's tightening a noose on the real economy. But the mainstream media pretending it's just another normal day in Washington. They're showing coffee breaks in Congress, little chuckles, nothing to see here. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Senator John Fetterman just dropped a bomb that made the View collapse live on air. Total panic, and you want to know what's really going on. Because once I tell you, you'll realize everything they fed you about this shutdown is a lie, and the truth changes everything. Let's get straight to it. The government needs a budget deal to keep running. No deal, it closes. National parks, military paychecks, air traffic control, all of it stops. The last time this happened, it cost $24 billion to the economy in just weeks. And guess what? It's happening again right now. But here's where it gets interesting. Everyone's pointing fingers at the Republicans, saying they're playing hero and wanting to shut it all down. Except Fetterman, a Democrat, just released internal documents that prove the opposite. The Democrats are forcing the shutdown, and it's not an accident, it's strategy. Pause for a second. Think about this. Have you noticed how every time the government gets close to closing, the blame always lands on the same guys? It's a pattern, like badly written code running in the system for decades. And the code says, create chaos, blame the other side, protect the spending nobody asked for. Fetterman showed emails, meeting minutes, numbers, insane spending on programs nobody voted for, and billions funneled to NGOs, consultants, bureaucracies that only exist to justify more bureaucracy, and when someone tries to cut it, they scream, shutdown, but wait, who benefits from the chaos? This is where things start escalating, because while the View tries to pivot with nervous jokes, one of them even knocks over her water glass. Fetterman goes to the Senate floor and reads excerpts live. He says word for word, these guys are using the shutdown threat to protect funds that go to everything except you, the average American, and he has the receipts. It's not opinion, it's documents, and the reaction, silence from the big media. CNN cuts to commercial. New York Times runs a piece on the weather, but online explodes, millions of views in hours because people feel it. They know something doesn't add up. Now, let me tell you something. Almost nobody is connecting. This isn't just about Fetterman. Behind the scenes, Donald Trump and I are lining up a counteroffensive nobody saw coming. It's not about party. It's about efficiency, about cutting what doesn't work and giving the money back to the people who produce. And yeah, I know it sounds crazy for a tech billionaire to get involved, but look, I've built companies that move the world with less bureaucracy than a government department spends on coffee. I see patterns, and the pattern here is crystal clear. The system was designed to extract, not to serve. Let's step back just enough for you to see the pattern repeat in 2013, 16-day shutdown. Cost $24 billion. In 2018, another one, 3 days, but enough to delay veteran payments. In 2019, the longest in history, 35 days. And every time the same narrative, radical Republicans, but look at the numbers. Who controlled the White House? Who controlled the Senate? In 2/3 of the cases, Democrats were forcing the issue to protect specific spending. And now, same play, except this time, someone decided to speak up. Fetterman isn't the hero they expected. He's a guy who had a stroke, came back to work, and decided he wasn't playing the game anymore. He looks at his colleagues and says, enough, and what he exposes is simple. Democrats want to keep funding diversity initiatives that cost millions and change nothing. Climate consultancies that produce reports nobody reads. And to protect that, they're willing to let the country grind to a halt. But this is where the twist starts. Because Trump and I aren't just watching, we have a plan, And it's not just talk, it's action, a legislative maneuver that cuts woke funding at the root, redirects to real infrastructure, border security, tax cuts, and the best part, it's legal, it's within the rules. But they never expected someone to use the rules against the system. It's like reprogramming locked software. You don't smash the computer, you rewrite the code, and the new code says the money belongs to the people, not the government. But wait, there's more, because while Fetterman holds the line in the Senate, The View tries to counterattack. One host says he's being used by Republicans. Another tries to change the subject to cats. Cats live on air and the audience sees it. The comments explode, they're scared. And they should be, because when the truth comes out, the house of cards starts to wobble. And that house was built on lie after lie. Now, let me slow down for a second and ask you, how do you feel when you realize the evening news is omitting the most important part of the story? When you see the problem isn't lack of money, but too much waste, I get angry, but anger without action is just noise. So here's what's happening right now. In real time, a coalition is forming. It's not left or right. It's efficiency versus status quo. And Fetterman is just the tip of the iceberg. Think of it like a rocket. You need fuel, structure, and a clear target. The fuel is the legitimate anger of the hardworking American who sees their money vanish. The structure is legislation that already exists, just needs to be used, right? And the target wastes billions on programs that deliver nothing. And when you cut that, it's not cruelty, it's responsibility. It's like cleaning bloated code from software. Suddenly everything runs faster. But here's where the tension ramps up again, because the establishment won't go quietly. They have allies in media, big corporations, universities, and their move now, try to turn Fetterman into the villain. Say he betrayed the party, that he's confused because of his health. But look, I know resilience. I've been called crazy for wanting to colonize Mars. And guess what? We're there. Resilience is what happens when you decide truth matters more than comfort. And now the twist nobody saw coming. This isn't just about the current shutdown. It's about the next one, because if this maneuver passes, it sets a precedent, a model, a template that can be used again and again until the entire system changes. It's not a party win. It's a logic win, a numbers win, a win for people who want results, not speeches. Let's do the math together. The federal budget is about $6 trillion a year. Of that, nearly $1 trillion goes to interest payments on the debt. $1 trillion? That's more than defense, more than healthcare, more than education. And who pays it? You, with inflation, with taxes, with less money in your pocket, and for what? To sustain a system that spends poorly and asks for more. But what if we cut just 10% of the waste? That's $600 billion back into the real economy. $600 billion that can lower prices, create jobs, fund innovation. This isn't theory, it's math. And now the final escalation, because the Democrats know this, they see the numbers, and their play is to accelerate the shutdown before the maneuver passes, shut everything down. Now blame Republicans, force a deal that keeps the funding untouched. But Fetterman isn't playing that game. He's on the floor talking nonstop, using Senate rules to delay votes. And meanwhile, Trump is rallying support in the states, governors, mayors, people who live reality, not the DC bubble. And me, I'm bringing data, real data, satellites, analytics, projections, showing where the money goes, who profits, who loses, because in the end, this isn't about ideology, it's about efficiency, about freedom, about a government that serves, not one that drains, and the media, they can ignore it, but they can't erase it because the internet doesn't forget, and people are waking up. Now breathe, because here comes the moment that changes everything, the maneuver Trump in. I Prepared isn't just a funding cut, it's a rewrite, a zero-based budget, where every line has to be justified from scratch. It's not prove this is waste anymore. It's prove this is essential. And guess how many programs survive that test? Very few. And the ones that do, they get better, cheaper, more efficient. Like a company that actually competes But the establishment is panicking because if this passes, the game is over. No more infinite money for friends. No more million-dollar consultancies for reports that go in a drawer. And the View, they feel it. That's why the desperation live on air. That's why the jokes fall flat. Because deep down, they know the castle is cracking. And now the question nobody wants to answer, what if this is just the first? What if after the shutdown comes the debt? What if after the debt comes tax reform? One after another, like software updates, each one fixing bugs in the old system, each one bringing more freedom, more prosperity, less control. You're seeing the pattern now, because here's what I see. I see a future where government spends less and delivers more, where you decide where your family's money goes, and where innovation isn't choked by regulations written by people who we never built anything, and that future isn't utopia, it's inevitable, because truth has a way of winning, always. But it won't be easy. There will be pushback, there will be screaming, there will be disinformation attempts, but there will also be you, the American, who works, who pays, and when you realize the power isn't in Washington, but in your choice of who to believe, everything changes. So here's the end of this story, but not the end of the fight. Fetterman holds the line. Trump sets up the play. I bring the data, and you decide if you'll let the media tell you what to think, or if you'll look at the numbers, see the pattern, and demand more. Because the shutdown isn't the end. It's the beginning of a government that works, of an America that leads back to the future we promised and never delivered. And in the next video, we'll show exactly how this maneuver gets through Congress, who tries to stop it, and what happens to your gas prices, your paycheck, your freedom, when the system finally starts to give. You'll want to be there, because this time the story isn't told by them. It's told by us. And we don't lie. And no, just the beginning.